Welcome back to Got the Magnet. And before we get started, remember to like and subscribe to this video so you'll be up to date as we develop more content. So we're just back from a cruise. So where did we go? And what cruise line did we go on?
We went on the Royal Caribbean on the Grandeur of the Seas ship from December 13th to the 20th. We went to Costa Maya, Mexico, Bertan, Honduras, Cozumel, and Belize.
It was a 7-night cruise out of Tampa. The ship started in Tampa. That's where we got on. What did you think of the embarkation process?
We arrived around 9:30 a.m. Our check-in time was at 10:30. We were checked in a couple minutes and were able to go in the holding line where they hold you until you could get on the ship.
We had parked off site, so we needed to take a shuttle and carry our bags across the street. We were actually so early that they let us go in with the people who were doing the side-by-side cruises. A number of people had gotten off Rhapsody of the Seas previously, so we were actually able to board with them. After the suites and the key guests, we were one of the first people on board the ship. The week before, they had the embarkation from hell. The ships that were supposed to be in before 7 a.m. didn't arrive until late afternoon because of fog. This was cakewalk because we walked in, they immediately checked us in, and we just sailed right through. So it was one of the smoothest embarkations we had ever encountered. You said we got on about 10:30. Were we able to go right to our cabins?
No, the cabins do not open until 1 p.m. But in between, we went to the Windjammer Cafe to have lunch, roamed around the ship to get familiarized where everything was.
You forgot the most important part.
We got our free cups for our alcohol drinks and muster station.
Now I'm talking about getting my first ice cream. When I'm officially on the ship, when I had my first served ice cream. I got a new credit card right before we boarded. I went to guest services and gave them my updated credit card information. This was our first time doing traditional dining in many years, and we wanted to find out where our table was. The dining room staff was more than accommodating. Not only did they give us our number, they actually walked us to the table and showed us exactly where our table was, which made the first night of dining extremely easy. We didn't have to look for a table. We just immediately went to it. It was also right by the door, which made it super convenient. At about 1 o'clock, we did get access to our room. We were in our room by 1:05. Once we got to our cabin, can you describe it?
It was all the way down on deck 2 near sea level. We had 2 portholes, 1 big bed, and a dresser with hair dryer. The bathroom was a little bigger, but not much, with curtains instead of glass doors. It was tiny on the first day, but by the end of the cruise, it seemed like a normal sized cabin.
What about the TV situation? Were there a lot of channels?
No, maybe 2 or 3 channels you can watch, but it's usually repeated shows.
They license a lot of CBS shows. And there's also the channel that shows the view from the bridge, the front of the ship. One of the comedians had a great joke. Did you go to a hotel and do they have a camera of the parking lot on your hotel room? It's quite humorous when you think about it, but it is nice to see what's in front of you without having to go up on the deck. Since we were so low and far forward, did you notice any noise or excessive rocking compared to when we were on the higher levels on previous cruises?
The only noise I noticed was when they anchored for when we were tendered and the thrusters, you can hear it rumbling and shaking and a little rockiness towards at nighttime. It felt like I was in the water.
I agree. Sue went up on deck. I stayed in the room laying down. But as far as the motion while we're sailing, it was relatively calm. We noticed it from time to time, but compared to other cruises, this was a lot less volatile. But other people on the cruise did remark that this was one of the smoothest sailings that they've ever had as far as calmness of the water from start to finish. This was our first time doing the traditional dining as opposed to the unlimited dining experience in 15 years. We had a 5 o'clock dining. Our table size was 10, but the most ever seated at the table on any given night was 6 of us. There seemed to be a couple of us that were there almost every night, and then others who would come in as their schedule allowed. So, what did you think of the traditional dining experience as opposed to our previous dining experiences?
We got to meet a couple from Canada and a couple from Florida.
The food was very good. It's the same meals you would get in my time dining. The food, it's not as good as the ultimate dining experience because you're not paying the upcharge for it. The equivalent is very good banquet food in terms of quality. I was not disappointed in anything that we had, although you did say the French onion soup wasn't the best.
It was so bland American.
Other than that, there were no complaints on it. And it is nice having the same staff at every seating because they get to learn your habits. By the third day, I just regularly don't drink coffee after meals, but the one night I'd asked for it, every night I had a cup of coffee coming with my dessert, whether I wanted it or not. One of the highlights of the week for us was doing the chef's table. This is something we've done before, and honestly, we weren't going to do it this time because it's something we don't do on every cruise. We decided at the last minute because they had a special. Normally it's around $100, but this time we were able to get it for around $60. It was a nice diversion. For those of you not familiar with the chef's table, it's a special curated meal served in an intimate dining experience. Where it's located depends on the ship. In this case, it's in the corner of the dining room. It looks like a boardroom, a large table there, seats about 14 people, and it's a 5-course meal plus dessert. Each of the courses is paired with a wine, and then the dessert, which is the world, it's one of those melting chocolate bombs that is paired with an espresso martini. It's a lot of fun. It's not for everyone, but if you enjoy it, you will love it. As I said earlier, it's seats about 14 people. In our case, there was only 6 people there, so it made conversation go really well. It's hosted by one of the senior waiters, and then one of the chefs explains about the meal. It is just a fabulous dining experience. I would highly recommend it. It starts off with the Parker House rolled bread, which if you've never had it, it is probably the best bread we've ever had. We're going to share some pictures of the food and the description of it, but highly recommend it for your next cruise. We did the chef's table and we did main dining room for dinner. What did we do for breakfast?
We did the Windjammer and the main dining room.
What's the difference between the two?
The Windjammer is a buffet. The main dining room, you sit down and you get served.
Yeah, the main dining room, it's more civilized. You come in, you're seated at a table. Usually it's a large table. You're seated first come, first serve. We had it a couple mornings and we sat with different people engaged in conversation. It's a limited menu, but we've never had any trouble finding anything to eat on there. As far as the Windjammer, it's a buffet style. Because this was a smaller ship, the offerings were not as extensive as you will find on other cruise ships. But you have your standard bacon, eggs, pancakes, waffles, French toast, assortment of pastries, coffee, juices, and they had a made-to-order omelet and eggs Benedict station. If you go at the peak time, it can get a little crowded. You may find yourself hunting a little more for a table, maybe having to maneuver, but overall, it's not a bad experience. A lot of mornings on the cruise, especially if you early excursion, you're pretty much relegated to the Windjammer because that opens about an hour before main dining. Another option is you can get a continental breakfast delivered to your room. You need to order the night before. There's no charge. One of the key aspects on any cruise is the entertainment. What kind of entertainment was on board?
For free, there was the best man competition, the belly flop competition, which there was actually 2 winners, 1 male and 1 female this year. There was the main theater. We had a comedian, Ron Horseman, the singer, Lou Gazzara, which we saw on Navigator of the Seas. He was from the Four Tenors in Las Vegas. He was one of the Jersey Boys. And the crazy juggler was Pete Matthews, where he had a 5-foot unicycle, which he had audience participation trying to hold the unicycle up for him. I think he could have did it by himself, but just made it more laughable. And at the end of the show, he came out to the audience, stood on top of the chairs, and kept saying to the person next to him, "Don't touch me," every 30 seconds. We had another comedian, George Cantor. I thought they were all good, but I liked Pete Matthews the best because he also juggled axes, knives, pinballs. There were some that actually charge you for liquor tasting or wine tasting, and they had a lesson on how to make sushi.
Additionally, they had the standard cruise fare. Every night, they had a different theme night, which was in the app. Dance parties related to that. We're not up very late, so we were usually in bed by the time these dance parties started. They have the art auction regularly through there. They have the required bingo. Of course, there's casinos on board, which a number of people we encountered spent a lot of time there. One of the hallmark events that we try not to miss is the Love and Marriage game show. The Love and Marriage game show, they similar to the old Newlywed Game, where they get three couples. This time it's in three different aspects of their married life. Usually they try and get somebody married less than a couple weeks, a couple married 50 or more years, and a couple in the middle. It's PG-13, so leave the kids at home or at least in the room, but it is always guaranteed to be a good time. One that we vow every time that we're going to go is the Quest. We went years ago. It's a late night, adults only activity. And from what I understand, it gets raunchy. If you're easily offended, do not go. It's just too late for us. And it's usually towards the end of the cruise. So by then we're exhausted. But for people who say they're bored on cruise ships, it's because they're not looking. There is more than enough stuff. If you want to just sit around and people watch, or if you want to dance until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, or gamble, there's plenty to do on cruises. And this one, even though it's a smaller ship, still had a lot to offer. What was your favorite excursion?
We did 3 out of 4 ports. We did Mayan ruins in Costa Maya. We got to know the history. Every level that they did took 40 to 60 years of the person's life to do it. We went to do the cave tubing, which was my favorite, because we got to learn the stalagmite and the stalactite of the cave. We also got to see what was called a brain, which actually looks like your brain in your head. Our tour guide jumped inside a pool and found a tarantula. Afterwards, we walked about 15 minutes to where the tubing was. It was 8 of us in a boat. We got all tied up so that he can direct us where we were going towards the end of the cases. It was very neat to see.
Just to clarify, he tied the tubes together. He didn't tie us up and throw us in the water.
And we went to Cozumel to do the stingrays and the nursing sharks. We did snorkeling. We saw a couple nursing sharks, but since it was off the beach, the current was so strong that I couldn't even swim. So I got out a few minutes earlier than everybody else. Then we got to hold the stingrays, got to know between the male and the female. The female is actually the bigger of the two. And we got to feed them off of the shoreline. You can actually feel that they're slimy and their mouth is underneath their body. We actually fed them a sardine, which was really cool.
Plus, we got to kiss the stingray, get a picture taken kissing the stingray. I have to agree with Sue. My favorite was the cave tubing. There was a lot of walking, but it was well worth it to be pulled through the cave. That was really the highlight of the cruise, I believe.
And the water was so high because it rained for the past 5 days, and we were the only excursion for the cave tubing that day. So we were lucky enough that we actually did it.
We met somebody on the cruise who was going to another cave, and their excursion was canceled due to the weather.
We came back from Grandeur of the Seas, and this was our first time. What did you think of it?
I like Grandeur of the Seas. It is the smallest ship in Royal Caribbean's fleet. After being on some of the larger ships, there were some things we were missing, and we'll touch on them. But as a 30-year-old ship, it was still in really good shape. I think a lot of the wear and tear I saw on the Navigator, which is a much newer ship that we caught on a couple weeks ago. I was very impressed with how well Grandeur of the Seas has aged.
Compared to other cruises we went on, was this a good values?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we chose it, because we felt on this cruise we got a lot of bang for our buck. First of all, it was early December, so it was cheaper than coming Christmas week. I actually took a look, like coming December 13th as opposed to the following week on December 20th. It was about half the cost for a comparable period. Also, the ship is decorated for Christmas, and they go all out. They have a giant Christmas tree, Christmas lighting event. Unfortunately, we could not attend that because that coincided with our dinner. The one thing is, there's not a lot of balconies on Grandeur of the Seas. So most of the cabins are either ocean view or inside cabin. We chose an ocean view guaranteed, which meant that Royal Caribbean got to pick our cabin. Because of that, we were on the second deck, which is the lowest deck for passengers. And we were like 8 cabins from the front of the ship. But as we said earlier, we really like the room. I have absolutely no complaints and would happily stay in that room again. I think we paid for the cruise itself about $1,800 for 2 of us for 7 nights. So that works out to be a little over $100 per person. But that included the room, entertainment, and all the meals with the exception of the chef's table. Our bill at the end was about $400 and some dollars, for mostly for gratuities. We did pay a charity auction, so we got 100 photos for $100 as part of the charity auction, which worked out really well. We did get the drink package, which gave us unlimited alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks for all 7 nights. And that worked out to be about $50 a day per person, so around $700. We did get our money's worth out of that. We probably had 5 to 6 drinks a day, plus some soda. So we did not overdo it with drinks, but we felt we got the value out of that. Overall, we really enjoyed this and we got our money's worth out of it. What were your other thoughts on the cruise?
I enjoyed it, even though it was a smaller ship than any other ones. This one only held about 3,000 passenger and crew members. I loved all the entertainment. I actually went to watch the belly flop contest, and there was 2 winners, one male and one female, which is unusual.
Yeah, I think it was a different cruising experience than we experienced because of the smaller nature. Like one of the things they did on previous cruises, they brought all the ship members up so the guests can thank them. On this one, they did a parade of flags where they have an event in the Centrum to acknowledge all the different places that the crew members come to, which was really nice. As far as the size of the ship, it did not seem that small until a couple ports. We were parked next to Icon of the Seas, one of the largest cruise ships in the world. And then in Cozumel, we parked next to Allure of the Seas. Even though Allure is much smaller than Icon, the difference between Grandeur and Allure could be really seen the way it was parked and the way you came up along it. Actually looked like a spare vessel on it. Overall, I love the cruise ship and I like the itinerary. We're doing a similar one next December on another ship, the Enchantment of the Seas, because Grandeur is getting repositioned to Latin America sometime next year.
If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share to Got the Magnet.